Hello, my name is Bryce Cosplay, and today I'll be showing you how I made my wig for Violet Evergarden. The wig I used was from Epic Cosplay Wigs. It is in their style NYX, and I also used additional 35-inch wefts in the same shade that you can find on their store. First order of business was removing some of the wefts from the ear tabs all the way to the neck and setting those aside for a later time. I used a stitch pick and scissors. And then using a hot glue gun, I just fixed up any of the pieces of the wig net that I accidentally took apart. With some quilt batting, I pinned that to the wig itself with some just regular sewing pins, matching it to where the hair ends and where it meets. And then with a pair of scissors, I just helped shape it. Then went over it with a hot glue gun just to make sure everything was secured. And then for the final part of this, I went over it with a heat gun. You could also use a hairdryer and making sure you do not burn it. Next up was making the wefts. If you've seen me in my other tutorials, you know how I do this, but I typically just take a section of hair, brush it out, and then using E6000 glue, I just make sure it's all coated and stuck together before I set that aside to use for later. Now I already pre-sectioned everything, but right here I'm just separating pieces to use for the little bangs as well as making the braids. I chose to go with two separate braids, one in the front, one leading into the back, and then I just kind of French braid those along, adding hair as I go. If you've ever braided hair before, you know this process, it's quite easy. And then I'm pulling them out to make them appear bigger and to hide any wefts that you will see without hair. Taking care to fill any spots that are not covered in hair already or that you need to lay a certain way with the wefts you had made previously. I glue them down with E6000, put a pin where I need it, and then later I will touch up wherever is kind of falling and also clean up the edges. As you can see, there's some things poking out. I'll just go ahead and cut those out later and feather them to make sure that they will in fact blend into the hairline rather than poke me later. Here's where those 35-inch wefts come into play. I use them to make the hair buns, crimping them, making sure they're all detangled, and then I decided to braid them in 4 different sections just so that if I ran out of hair, I could easily add more to the buns themselves. As I'm braiding, I'm also pulling them apart just to make them appear a little bit bigger and a bit more fluffy, if that makes sense. It just gives it a little bit more of a cuter look, I find, but you don't have to do this. You can keep them as nice tight braids. The base for the buns was a styrofoam ball that I cut in half and attached magnets to on the back. Using hot glue, I just kind of glued the wefts that I had previously braided onto the half styrofoam ball just to kind of give it a bit more of a shape as well as add extra security and a way to attach the buns to the wig itself. Just kind of making a basket and then trimming off the ends and tucking them away. When using anything that is hot or sharp, please be careful. I already burnt myself once in this project and it was not fun. And you just also don't want to accidentally cut yourself. It makes it kind of suck. On the back of these, I used E6000 to glue on some magnets. Did not work, so I had to take them off and use hot glue instead because foam does not like E6000. To make the back, of the wig, what I did was take some wefts that we made previously, gluing them onto the wig so they stuck out, letting that dry, and then taking a comb and going through the center of where the hair is connected. I kind of split it apart into halves, going on one side and the other to make it a makeshift parting. For the rest of the wig, what I did was cut off the excess hair before feathering it out to give it a less bulky appearance, before brushing it to get all the stray hairs out, then gluing it down and making sure it's smooth with a rubber spatula. You can also use your hand or a wooden little popsicle stick. I just have this on hand, it makes it easier. Clipping in place to make sure it dries that way, and doing that for the rest of the hair. I also like to use got glued just to kind of smooth down any little baby hairs or flyaways. It just kind of makes it a bit more smoother in appearance. To make sure that the buns were attached, what I did was take some magnets and attach them to the back of the wig where they would have met up with the magnets that are currently glued onto the buns. And then for added stability, I took U-pins, which are wider bobby pins, and just slid them through some of the braid loops as they were attached to the wig itself. And then just makes it more stable so I could head bang away. Once all the hair was glued down to where I wanted it, I took a pair of scissors and just kind of trimmed up the edges to make them flush with the wig cap, as well as to thin them out so they're a little less pokey. For the braids, what I did was hot glue them instead of E6000 because it was easier to work with and I had a bit more of an easier work time to do so. After I was finished gluing them down, I just trimmed up the edges so that the ponytails were no longer visible and made sure it was stuck to the back of the wig head. I should have turned the wig around for this, but here I am just kind of trimming the front framing pieces a little bit and fanning them out so it's a little softer to fall around the face. I did match them together and then I just curled them with a straightener. I was having a little bit of trouble with this curl because for some reason one piece wanted to stick out, but it turned out okay in the meantime. For the bangs, I didn't have to do much with them because unfortunately this wig was for something that I no longer cosplay, so all I did was thin them out and trim them a bit so they didn't cover my eyes as much. And that is how I made my wig for Violet Evergarden. I hope this gave you a little bit more tips and tricks to use in your arsenal, as well as how to get started on your own wig journey. But thank you for watching.